Welcome back to Rebel Therapy Podcast. I think we're north of 20, episode
21.
21. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the worst therapy experiences that we have experienced from the perspective of having a bad therapist.
Yeah.
So these are things we've heard from other clients, like bad therapy experiences or bad therapy experiences we have had ourselves with prior therapists.
Yeah.
So hit it, Michelle. What's your worst memory of bad therapy?
I guess I've had a few. And I think the hard thing about it is like, at first I was like, well, maybe I don't know how to do therapy, or maybe therapy isn't for me because this isn't working, So I like,
Ding, ding,
sorry,
ding.
I don't know if you
No,
want to
I
say
was
more,
gonna
but
say,
yeah, okay.
even before you go further, if it's okay, I just want to say this comes up all the time, right? People think, I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it's not your job to be a good client. It's the therapist's job to make you feel comfortable and to create space for the experience. So anyway, so first strike, right? Your therapist at the time was not able to do that for you. Continue.
No, not at all. And she always seemed really detached and disinterested when I was speaking. And she would play with her hair and drop pieces of it on the ground, like this.
Okay. Ding, 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 ding. I'm just going to do the ding. Actually, next time we do this, I'm going to get like an actual bell so that I can ring the bell when this happens. If your therapist seems disinterested, it's on them, not you. Right? So
Yeah.
if your therapist, this is just a little life hack. If your therapist seems disinterested, get a new therapist. Continue.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not you, it's the therapist. Throw it on the ground. And I just remember watching her and being like, huh.
What the
I
heck?
don't understand
Okay.
what's happening. Like, is this what it is? I just kind of talk at somebody and they seem like mildly disinterested. And then they
Ding,
ask me
ding,
to buy
ding.
a book that they make money off
No,
of.
are you serious? Oh my God. Okay, the book thing is, times a million. But also, if you feel like you're talking at someone, this is their problem, not yours. It
Yeah.
just means there's not a fit. So you got to find a different therapist because as a client of a good therapist, you feel heard and seen and important, right?
Yeah.
As a bare minimum.
And just a basic human level of connection. I think the sad part of the story is I was really struggling at the time and could have used somebody that was kind and connected. When I was so young, right? So I had no idea what a good therapist was. I just knew in my gut that they weren't meeting me where I needed to be. It was only once I met my therapist that I worked with a long time where I was like, oh, okay, you're talking to me like a human. Like we're just two humans together and you're connecting with me.
Well, and I can share everything that you said, absolutely. I remember when I was doing my supervisory course to become a supervisor, because I supervise other therapists as well as
Mm-hmm.
see clients myself. There are a number of studies done that suggest whatever the intervention is in terms of the type of therapy that you practice and the different tools in your toolbox is less important than the relationship a therapist is able to create with a client in terms of predicting positive outcomes. So the relationship is everything. And I would
Yeah.
argue that if I'm talking to you and you seem bored, this is not a good relationship. Talk to me like a human is the absolute bare minimum. Yeah.
Totally. The fact that it is the relationship that carries the therapy, that's what
Exactly.
builds the trust like container where
Yes.
anything can actually happen. If you don't believe that your therapist actually cares about what you're saying, how do you get any work done?
Exactly. 100%. All right. So how long did you work with that therapist before you decided, this is not for me?
I don't know, maybe 6 months, way longer than I should have, but I was so young and I didn't really know what else to do. She gave me a book on procrastination because that was one of the things I struggled with. And I found a hard time reading it. I procrastinated about reading the book on
Of course you did.
procrastination.
Of course you did.
Why couldn't you just like talk to me about it? It would have been a
Absolutely.
much more effective intervention. But yeah, so about 6 months, and I don't know why I eventually tapered off, but I think I was just like, yeah, I don't know, it's not doing it.
But your resilience in hanging in and then I assume finding a different therapist later and becoming a therapist yourself, which is amazing. I say this to clients all the time. They come in and one of the first questions I ask in an initial session is, have you had experience with therapy before? What was that like? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? And some of the stories I hear are so bad. I can't help but say thank you for trying again. Like it seems
Yeah.
amazing to me the courage required to try it again,
I think that's
take
lovely
another
because it takes a level of rallying, right? It's
yeah,
like you were reaching for something with open, you weren't met there. It's kind of like you're disappointed or questioning whether you're the problem. And so to be able to rally and be like, maybe someone else can help me. Maybe it was not the right fit, I
yeah,
think is
and
actually beautiful.
I will thank people for honoring me with their second try or third try or
Mm.
seventh try or whatever it is, but having the willingness to try again feels like a bit of a blessing.
Do you want to talk about one of the things you hear often about what other therapists have said to clients of yours?
Okay.
I know what it feels like to be me all the
I mean, I
time.
could have faked it, I suppose, but I was like, nah, fuck it. I don't remember what I was going to say. I got
Yeah,
nothing.
it's
I got
fine.
nothing. Okay. So I just recently brought on a new client who's amazing. And it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are, but I asked them the same question. What have your experiences been before? This amazing 17-year-old client told me this really bizarre story about the therapist that she started to see after a really traumatic experience, like a safety event where she was experiencing some PTSD symptoms. She saw this new therapist for 6 or 8 sessions. And she said the whole time, every single thing she said, the therapist brought it back to her own experiences, right? She ended up walking away knowing about her therapist's son, his career, the therapist's marriage, and her own hopes and dreams. Her therapist ended up not knowing almost anything about this courageous teenager who was willing to show up again and again and talk about the challenges she was facing, and instead was met with this sort of like personal diatribe about her own experiences. And I just thought, yeah, that's not okay.
It just feels wrong in my body as you're saying that. I work so hard to share my humanity, but not the content of my life unless it feels overly useful to the client. I'm not there for them to help me with my problems or to see
Thank
my
you.
life, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and you and I've talked about this before, but one of the things that we really like about the Gestalt approach is the ability to bring ourselves as therapists into the experience. Because if I'm sitting across from you, you're my client, I'm the therapist, you are impacting me, I'm impacting you. There is some relevance there. But there's
Yeah.
oh, I was going to say a fine line. There isn't. There is a incredibly clear sort of Maginot line between let's share our experiences as humans and me, as your therapist telling you about the details or minutia of my life. Like, no, just no, not cool.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
just feels extremely strange and it's hard to understand where that person is coming from. So
Yeah,
it
of
is
course.
it
Of
is
course.
very courageous that they were willing to try again because it's so demoralizing to
Yeah.
think that maybe you're doing therapy wrong or not saying something interesting enough. I could see how you could really take that on yourself.
Back to something you said previously, when you had that one really bad experience, you were in crisis yourself. I think that needs to be flagged as well, is that often when we have these experiences with bad therapists, it's because we're in crisis, right? And most people,
Yeah.
in my own personal experience, don't go to therapy because everything's working beautifully, right? Typically, people finally show up in therapy because life is not working. So you're perhaps at your most vulnerable or at your most uncertain or at your most destabilized. And so it reinforces the importance of being able to trust a professional who knows what they're doing.
Yes, I could see how it is almost doubly damaging
Yes.
to have someone that's at best incompetent and at worst damaging
Harmful.
or like
Yes.
harmful, right?
Yeah.
But like for it also to be like you're really desperate, or like you're on this moment
So,
of
yeah.
sorry.
So, all right. So, no. I'm just thinking. So, we're sharing this information, which I think is important. But what kind of advice do you think we can give to people who are looking for therapists? Like, how, as a new client who doesn't have a lot of experience with therapy or no experience with therapy, how do you go about finding a good therapist and, kind of trying to ensure that you're getting somebody who's qualified and right for you? What advice would you give to a client?
I think it is very difficult because there's so many therapists out there and there's so much good branding, but not necessarily some depth underneath. If you can get a recommendation from somebody, that's great. It's like they've had a lived experience with someone, or even like their therapist recommends someone, that can be useful. Also, just like doing your own research, trying to find someone who matches with kind of the broad content that you're bringing, someone that's experienced working in that. And then it really is coming down to experiencing that person and trusting like how your body feels. If you feel like you could actually talk to this person, or you feel like they are presenting some real humanity and caring, and you're willing to open more as opposed to close more. It doesn't mean you're going to just spill your guts, but more like, oh, it was kind of easy to talk to her. It was easier than I expected.
I mean, I would say that the experience of therapy can feel like a stretch and a little bit uncomfortable because you're not really sure what you're doing and it's all a little bit new, but it shouldn't be terrifying and it shouldn't hurt. In a really practical way, here in Ontario, you can check out the CRPO and see that the person has the credentials, for example. Assuming that everybody is credentialed and it is a strictly controlled profession, that should be a given. Given that is in place, a referral is absolutely the best thing you can get if possible. After that, give it a try and really pay attention. Don't center as much on the actual therapist, center more on yourself and your experience of that therapy session. As the therapist in the room, I am auditioning for you. As the person experiencing therapy, is this working for you? Not is this working for the therapist? A good therapist is going to create the space where you feel seen, heard, valued, and respected. If those pieces are not in place, move on.
Get out of there.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this foray into bad therapy. Maybe we'll do this again because I hear tons of examples from my clients. If this is helpful, let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you like our content. We'll explore a few more cautionary tales to help you get on the right track.
I'd be curious if people are willing to comment sort of the bad experiences they've had, to let us know. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Katie. Bye.